Within Bridgerton Season 3 Part 1, there were several romances that made a feature in the first 4 episodes that were released, something which was a slightly different approach to what we usually see with the main romance taking centre stage. One of the romances that got a heavy focus and was actually executed quite well was that of Francesca Bridgerton and Lord Kilmartin, somebody who came out of the blue when she least expected it and managed to strike a chord in her heart. So with us needing to now wait a month until we find out what happens, I thought I'd turn to the book to see what exactly happened to the pair and find out if they'll get a happy ending. Plus, let's also remember as well, the show might deviate from the book, so this isn't necessarily what's going to happen in the show, but there's a strong chance that it will. So let's get into it. Here is Bridgerton Season 3 Part 2, What Happens with Francesca and Lord Kilmartin. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. In the first part of Season 3, we saw that Francesca was a debutante that was looking for a suitor during the first few episodes. It got to the point where Queen Charlotte was the very person that saw Francesca for the sparkling diamond that she was and saw it right for her to be the very person that she invested her time and efforts into finding the right person for. Francesca had many options throughout the show as there was a wide array of people that were going up to her during the balls and events and introducing themselves. However, the Queen saw it right for her match to be Lord Samardani from Vienna, Austria. Even though Samardani was interested in Francesca and there were some kind of feelings that were reciprocated out of politeness towards Samardani, it was when Francesca stepped outside for a moment of peace that she met Lord Kilmartin, also known as John Stirling. The both of them barely uttered a word to one another, and it was just being in that silence that allowed the connection between them to ignite and for a romance to then start to blossom. This was something that meant that the feelings that she was trying to feel for Samardani were then pushed aside, and the interest that she had in Lord Kilmartin then started coming to fruition. It was later on in the first part where we saw them meet 3 times again, where it looked like the interest that they had was growing more and more. This was with the encounter when he arrived at the Bridgertons' estate and they just sat in silence together again, when they bumped into each other in the street, and then for the final time in the first part of the season when he gave her a gift. A gift of sheet music which had the piece of music on that was playing in the background in the street when she was frustrated with it because she felt it would be better suited in a 3/4 time signature. So it showed that he was going to the effort to please her and to make an impression. He wanted to make her happy and show that he was genuinely interested in her. The final time that we saw her, she was playing the music and she had a huge smile on her face and essentially said to her mother that her heart had won when looking for love, rather than the mind. What that meant was that the mind was essentially telling her to go with Lord Samardani because of the status, wealth and lifestyle that he had, but her heart was saying Kilmartin because she actually had feelings for him. And that was exactly where it left off. So with it finishing like that, it left us with the burning question of what's going to happen to them in the next season of the show. Well, because Bridgerton is based on the books, it means that there is material there that we can turn to in order to see what happens to the characters. The headline for the couple is that they get a happy ending and then it's met with extreme tragedy. So Francesca does actually choose to be with Lord Kilmartin, which is something that I think many of us would be pleased with because it did feel like they actually had a genuine connection with one another, and they go on to get married in Scotland. Following them being married, it's within the space of only 2 years where sadly John Stirling dies of a cerebral aneurysm. This is something that occurs following him complaining about having a headache all day on the day that he dies. When he was discovered, he was found dead by Francesca and also his cousin Michael Stirling, somebody who also goes on to have a large importance in Francesca's life, but we'll get to that. Following Lord Kilmartin's death, Francesca reveals that at the time of his death, she was actually pregnant with his child. However, she sadly goes on to lose the baby before it's born, adding more heartbreak and devastation to the romance and love story that looked like it was destined to have a happy ending due to the strong connection that they both had with one another. This does make me wonder whether or not this is all going to happen in this next part of the show, as it is quite a lot to cover, and considering this isn't the main story, it would be hard to fit it all in. Personally, I don't think it will. This season is all about Penelope and Colin, and I think everything that's happening with Francesca and Lord Kilmartin is something that's laying down the foundations for what's going to come when it does eventually reach the season of the show which Francesca will be taking centre stage. Francesca's story is the 6th installment in the books, which is titled When He Was Wicked, so I think that the show could potentially be setting that up for the next season. However, with Benedict's story also getting a focus in this season of the show as well, and his story originally being the 3rd book in the series, it could mean that Francesca's story might genuinely be in season 5 of the show. so it is quite hard to tell right now. The fourth book has become the third season, so maybe the third book, which is Benedict's, will become the fourth, and then the sixth book, which is Francesca, will become the fifth season. That's all dependent on if Netflix want to commission more seasons, as they've only got the green light to go up to season 4 right now. But I feel like that could well be the structure of how it could be given to us. So maybe this next part of the season is just going to be about us seeing Francesca admitting that she wants to be with Lord Kilmartin, declining the Queen's offer and suggestion of Lord Samadani, and ultimately completing the foundations of the relationship that she wants to have with John Stirling. One thing within the show that they've done differently is that instead of having Francesca and Lord Kilmartin's romance as a form of flashback like they have in the novel, they've tackled it in the present day, meaning that the foundations are there from the off. So it will almost serve as a flashback when we come to see Francesca's season of the show, as we'll be looking back within our own mind at what we saw in this season in a couple of seasons' time. So it's a smart way for the showrunners to do it. So I suppose I'll now touch on Michael Stirling, John's cousin who was with Francesca when John's body was discovered. It's said that Michael fell in love with Francesca the moment that he first laid eyes on her, which was a couple of days before she got married to John. With John no longer being around, that then meant that Michael became the new Earl of Kilmartin. However, he left the country and was gone for a few years. Upon his return, it coincided with the same time that Francesca travelled to London to find a new suitable husband. However, during this time in 1824, Michael and Francesca kissed, and the love that they had for one another then started to come to the forefront. Ultimately, they go on to get married with a small ceremony and do it quietly because following the large wedding that she had with John, she didn't want another large-scale one. During Francesca's marriage to John, she did actually try to find Michael a suitable wife, but when she was doing that, she didn't know that he was in love with her at the time. John's mother was also somebody that offered her blessing and wasn't disappointed in Francesca for marrying John's cousin, which was more like a brother. Francesca was initially worried about what Janet would think of her, but it turned out that there was nothing to worry about. As you can see, Francesca and John do get some happy years together, but they're extremely short-lived. John is described as being Francesca's soulmate, and that's what she thought of him. I do wonder if her love for Michael is something that will ever reach the heights of what it did with John in those short couple of years, but I guess that's something that we'll just have to wait until Francesca's standalone season for. But in terms of season 3 part 2, I think we'll see Francesca and John get their happy ending. A happy ending that it feels as though they deserve. And I suppose, if you don't know the story of the book, then it may feel like it's over. But as you now know, it's most certainly not, and there's heartbreak and tragedy to come. So, there you have it. What happens to Francesca and Lord Kilmartin in Bridgerton Season 3 Part 2. If you want to see more videos on Bridgerton, such as the first part of the season broken down, or the trailer for Part 2 explained with my theories on what could happen, then click on the card in the top corner. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. Do you prefer Francesca and Lord Kilmartin or Penelope and Colin? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.